Hi there, my name's Josh, and thanks for joining me today. I want to make a video telling you why I love the NVMe interface for solid state drives now. And if that doesn't mean anything to you right now, that's okay. So we're just going to hop right into it. So, I have to be honest with you. I live under a rock, and I love it. It's great. But the funny thing about living under a rock is that when you go out of the rock, you discover new things. And on one of my recent out-of-rock experiences, I discovered that storage got a lot faster. And I mean a lot faster. Not just a little bit, hundreds of times faster. And to really explain how shocked and how much I appreciate this, I have to tell you the story. I have to tell you the whole story. So stay tuned. And thanks for joining me. To really explain the gravity of the situation, we have to go back to elementary school. And this was a time for me that was exciting. I had my first time using computers. I was a part of a class that was very privileged in that they were taught on computers. We got to learn a lot of important concepts that are very commonplace today, but not back then. Stuff like what a web browser is, what a search engine is, what ask.com is, and we got to learn all of this stuff. And I remember the teacher was like, ask it anything you ever wanted to, and it will answer it. And I was like, no way. So I was like, when was Abraham Lincoln born? And it told me when he was born. I don't remember, but it told me. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. Back then, we were given floppy diskette drives, and we typed up something in WordPad, basically our first internet experience, and we saved it to this floppy disk drive. And then I got to take it out of the computer, hold it in my hand, and I gave it to the teacher. And the next week we came back and we got to boot up the computer and we put in our floppy disk drives, and there my file was. There it was. It was still there. Now computers were different for me. There was something permanent, and it left a permanent mark in my brain. I knew something that I didn't have to keep up here. It was on a little floppy disk drive. So before I get on to the next topic, I want to put in for reference here that floppy disk transferred at about 10 kilobits per second, and that's what they did. And they were quite noisy and kind of fragile. We were told not to touch them in a certain way, otherwise we would break them. Years later, freshman year of high school, I get a CD player. Tiny little thing, you can stuff it in your backpack. Batteries were always dead. You could play music wherever though. It was cool. So I wanted to burn a CD. I had to. I just had to. So I legally bought some music and found some CDs around the house and hired Windows Media Player to do the job. One meticulously researched playlist later, all the songs in perfect order, I pressed burn, and at that point, I was terrified. The computer started making really loud noises, it was spinning super fast, and I did what any normal person would do. I went to the kitchen and made a ham sandwich, hoping that it would all just blow over. And one ham sandwich later, I found out that it didn't break. No, in the tray, outside of the computer, was a CD waiting just for me. And I put it in my CD player, and I pressed play, and there it was. There was music. There's music. Mind blown. This was huge. I had freedom to burn and create CDs whenever I wanted, of whatever I wanted. And the speeds on this were about 150 kilobits per second. So about 6 months after my whole CD experience, we got our first flash drive in the house. My mother had to use it for college, and I was going to use it for downloading whatever I could get my hands on. That was anime, it was video games, it was calculator emulators, and I remember quite a few Java development kits were downloaded with that. And I even was able to download Ubuntu to the flash drive and then later installed it on my laptop. And this was huge. I could download whatever file I wanted, and I could have it at my house and use it. I remember the transfers for little files were instant, and there wasn't even a wait time. It took me minutes to finalize and burn my floppy disk back then. Or for a CD, it was a very big operation if you wanted to back up any files to it. But for this, it was a seamless drag and drop, and I put Word files on it, and they were there. And for large multi-gig files like the Ubuntu I mentioned, it would transfer at about 12 megabits per second quite consistently. A little later in 2014, I was going to make it big on YouTube, and I mean really big. I was uploading videos daily. These were 20-minute segments, and I would put them on a flash drive, take them to school, upload them. It's great. actually got a few views here and there, and it was really encouraging. And then I did a thing. I really liked a game called Metroid Other M, and this is like a game made back in 2010 for the Wii. I did an entire playthrough recording of it because I was like, oh, this is cool. This is novel. People are going to love this. And then I tried to put it on a flash drive. I was like, not enough space. I was like, what do you mean not enough space? It was like, not enough space. This file was 16 gigabytes big. Wow. So I caved and bought an external hard drive. And I was able to put it on the external hard drive, transfer to it at about 40 megabits per second. But if I'm honest, this video is way too ahead of its time. There was no internet to really get that up there in a reasonable manner. Kept failing. Never really got up. But if you guys want me to do a Metroid Other M playthrough, please let me know in the comments below. Anyways, this hard drive was how I got videos. So you might expect at this time in the video, I would start talking about solid state drives and it'd be fine and dandy. But let me tell you, back then they were whack expensive. Like the cost per gigabyte was way too much for me to even consider. And at the time I was dealing with over 400 gigabytes of data that I wanted to keep, such as family pictures, downloaded anime, 10 different versions of Linux, a bunch of software development stuff, and basically any file I had, I wanted to keep my hands on because our internet was just way too slow to even, re-download it in kind of what we do today. So at this point, I want to hand the camera over to CalebCurry, and he had actually had some early experiences with some SATA solid state drives.
Hey everyone, Caleb here. So I didn't get interested in storage the same way Josh did. I didn't really do the floppy disks and all this, but I did really get interested once solid state drives came out because at this point in my life, I was doing a lot of stuff with media. So I was working on YouTube. I was also doing a lot of Photoshop editing and development. And honestly, things were just terribly slow and transferring files took forever. So I ultimately got interested in upgrading to a solid state drive when they became a little bit more affordable. My boss paid for it, but I ended up buying a 240 gigabyte drive. And at that point, I don't remember the exact cost, but I know each gigabyte was at least $1. So I think it was somewhere between $250 and $300. And things have definitely developed since then, as I just purchased a 2 terabyte solid state drive for like $300. So I've been trying to tell Josh for like the longest time, like, you need to get a solid state drive. It's awesome. And we just couldn't do it realistically with our own finances, as we were both in high school at the time. So once we graduated and got our own jobs and stuff, we were finally able to get our own hard drives, which were solid state, and it made life a lot better.
So I would like to thank Caleb for that bit. Check out his channel, makes cool programming stuff. Anyways, this right here, this is a hard drive I used for probably 7 years. I remember I got it with my Dell Inspiron 630 something, I don't know. It was a desktop commodity. I love this drive. This drive lasted over 50,000 hours, and it still works, hopefully. I haven't plugged it in a while. But hard drives is what I used, and it worked. And eventually I ran out of space, and stuff happens in file management. But at a certain point, the cost per gigabyte for solid state drives was at a magic sweet spot, and I was in the market for a new laptop, and wha-bam, I have a laptop now with a solid state drive. But as I was transferring some stuff, I was like, whoa, this is way too fast. What is going on? I was able to transfer stuff at a gigabyte per second, at 2 gigabytes per second. So I'd like to say thank you to Caleb, and he's right. I rock this hard drive for over 51,000 hours. For a little off-the-shelf hard drive, it definitely did its job. For an introduction that is way too long, we are now in 2020 with 4th generation non-volatile memory extension solid-state drives on the peripheral component interconnect express interface using 4 lanes and a small next-generation form factor known as M.2 that can write at speeds of 2 gigabytes per second and sometimes faster. Whoever wrote this is stupid. We have really fast drives right now, and they're really small too. So instead of this, we have this, and this can transfer at a gigabyte per second, and honestly a lot faster, but a gigabyte per second for me is like the boom. I came from using floppy disk drives, transferring at 10 kilobits per second, and it had to do it in like a burning fashion where it like spun up and wrote to it and then it slowed down. So now we have this. We have this little guy that works. My laptop starts in 2 seconds and I can create large video files and work with them very quickly. I can do motion capture and record. I can write stuff at over 600 megs per second, all on this little drive. It's really awesome. And to really explain how much I appreciate this technology and the people who made it, I had to make this video explaining where we came from and where we are now. So I hope you learned something in this, and I hope you developed a greater appreciation for NVMe and how cool it is. So thanks for joining me, and please like and subscribe. Peace.